Hello everybody.
Hi, Taran.
Hi, Taran.
How are we all?
Good, thank you.
Alright, my name's Taran Field, as it says here. I'm a student at Manchester Film School and I'm going to pitch my short film, Drifting By. Let's get into it. This may seem a little bit morbid, but in my opinion it's just a fact. It's a fact that we can't run from and a fact that I think we need to embrace really. I don't think you can really live a full life until you're aware that you're going to die one day. You can't really appreciate something truly until you know that you're going to lose it. And there's countless stories you hear about old people and terminally ill people coming to the end of their lives and doing incredible things before they die. And there's countless films about, again, older people, terminally ill people, getting a new outlook for life right at the end. But I don't see many films targeted towards young people who still have their whole lives ahead of them, teaching them this lesson. So I decided to make one myself. As it's targeted specifically towards the younger generation, I decided to make it not about death, because that's not really much of a big topic for people our age. Instead about moving to university, it's a story about a character who's closing one chapter of their life and regretting not having made more of it, as this touches on all the themes that I wanted to hit, but it's a bit less depressing. Next slide. So the genre of my film is coming of age, as it's a character our age gaining a new outlook on life. It'll be 15 minutes long and it is set in the present day in a small town in Cumbria called Kirkby Stephen, which is very picturesque and beautiful, but extremely depressing for somebody our age.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Our main protagonists are two lads called Archie and Rick. They've lived in Kirkby their whole life and they've been friends for all that time. They're now 18 and they, as far as they're aware, they're going to be friends for the rest of their life, and they have big dreams of being the old men in the pub in Kirkby telling their stories. Rick is the leader of the two, if you will. He's cocky, confident. He's kind of got a fiery appreciation for life and he's pretty free-spirited, whereas Archie, his friend, kind of just drifts along behind him and doesn't really have a passion for anything and doesn't really know what he wants to do with himself other than just follow his mate around the town. The narrative kicks off and we discover that Archie is leaving the next day to go to university. He hadn't told Rick that he was going because he was kind of embarrassed, because they'd obviously agreed they're going to live here for the rest of their life and he thought he was disappointing his mate. But when he tells him, Rick's actually really happy for him. He's just quite shocked that it's all coming to an end so suddenly, and the two lads decide they're going to write down this bucket list of everything they thought they were going to do with their unlimited time in Kirkby, and try and get as much done in the one day they have left as possible. So they go around having basically the best day of their life, and you know, Archie kind of discovers all this stuff he could have been doing with his life if he just got started soon, and realises how much he had missed out on, and he starts to question whether or not he does want to go to uni, because suddenly, you know, this place that he'd always wanted to get out of is the coolest place in the world. To kind of push this this idea of him suddenly wanting to stay, I want the tone of the film to be ridiculously fun, because obviously the film is about gaining an appreciation for life. So I want to show them having insane fun. I want the film to start off super fast paced and then go into these crazy montages when they actually start ticking off this bucket list. Then as the day goes on and Archie starts to realise that this time is coming to an end, it goes into a more nostalgic kind of appreciation for what he's losing. Then at the end he starts to realise the lessons of how much he hadn't done. As I said, this tone kind of matches Archie's character arc. The film is very much driven by Archie's outlook on life, and while the ending's very slow, it's not a depressing ending, because the lessons he's learning are about life, and because he's not dying, because he's going to university, we know that he can take these lessons into the future with him, and hopefully do it a bit better, if you will. In terms of look of the film, this is also driven by Archie, like the narrative, and we kind of see the world through Archie's eyes. Start of the film, it's bleak, it's drizzly. This is England is a great example of this look. Then when they start ticking off their bucket list and it all becomes really fun and exciting, we go into a lot more colourful look. In the about halfway through the film, Archie finds an old camcorder and we have a montage shot on the camcorder. This is kind of to give that nostalgic feel and show how Archie's looking back as if we're watching Archie's memories. And then the film ends with a very dark kind of oranges and stuff to show kind of, you know, how everything calmed down a bit. The main challenges of this film is there's a lot of locations that probably won't be able to shoot in Manchester. obviously we're shooting it in a small town, and while a lot of the locations we can cheat, there will be wide shots of this town and stuff which will require us to travel to the location. So to make this easier, I'm not going to use a massive crew like the picture on the left. I wanted to scale down the crew, scale down the kit, make it very mobile, our shoot. I'm not trying to make it super cinematic. I'm happy for the quality to be a bit less because I wanted to kind of have a gritty, real look to it. So we'll shoot on smaller rigs and be able to move around the country a bit easier. Also, there's some bike scenes which are always a challenge to shoot moving parts, as the movements will be longer than the dolly track we have. So by using a smaller rig, we can utilise a gimbal as well for those shots. The reason I'm making the film, the benefits of the film, is, as I said at the beginning, I feel like this is a really important topic that people our age don't really discuss. Obviously, this topic of death and mortality is very taboo in our society, and even more taboo in our generation, as in the age we're at. But I think it's really important because we can't avoid death, and I think, you know, the second we embrace it, we can start living a lot better. So I think it is, despite a slightly, you know, morbid topic, it is a really positive message that I hope to instill in the audience. Any questions?
So,
Yes, okay.
during, say, the nostalgia scene,
Yeah.
what kind of kit are you hoping to use? Are you use just a DSLR, or are you going to push it back?
Yeah, so obviously for the nostalgia scene, as I mentioned, it would look as if it's shot through a camcorder, but I'm not actually going to shoot it through a camcorder because that would be quite complicated with files and stuff. So I think we do that a look in post. So I think we just use small DSLRs so we can get the handheld movement of the cameras, because what I hadn't mentioned is I want it to look like it's being operated by Archie, the camera, in that sequence. So we'd keep it light, but I think we'd use just, you know, modern DSLR and then put the actual grainy look on at the end.
Are the characters based off people you know, or they're based off yourself?
Yes, they're not based necessarily on, I couldn't pick out human beings from my life that have inspired me, but I love films that kind of take kind of stereotypical caricatures and kind of spin them. So I want the lads to be teenagers on bikes, they've got tracksuits on, kind of your classic, you see them around across the street kind of thing, old women, think little of them, that kind of thing. And kind of open the film with them being, you know, cocky, brash, playful, and then kind of give them kind of really powerful life lessons. So taking characters that people would assume would not really be that thoughtful about life, and then have them like learn these really powerful lessons and have them have like really deep, unexpected conversations with people our age. So it's not necessarily inspired by particular people, it's inspired by just people I've seen in my life that I think would be quite interesting to give them these experiences and see how they'd handle them.
Cool.
Yes.
Another one.
Yeah.
Judging off the examples you gave, I thought it was quite hard to pinpoint, but what's kind of the backstory for these characters? You know, what kind of social class at the end of living in a council house, living in a...
Yeah, so
Nice.
they're more working class, I'd say. Their background is they've lived in this village their whole life. They're definitely not privileged, but I wouldn't say they're particularly struggling in life. They're very in-betweenery, I guess. Their backstory isn't super touched upon in the film, but they're just kind of drifters, just kind of going about the kind of life where you don't really dream much, you just think you'll be stuck in just 9 to 5 jobs, go by pubs on the weekend, that sort of thing. They haven't got much, you know, aspirations in life, but they're definitely not from like the lower class.
Very good.
Cool.
Thank you.